States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here. For tonight, we have most of the board either online or a couple of us in person, so thank you all for being here. We have a presentation, essentially a follow-up from our presentation we had in the meeting a few weeks ago. So with that, Mr. Gannon and Mr. Whittemore.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Scott and I put together this presentation with several things in mind. A little more clarity from the last meeting at which you all attended and you saw Dr. Rick Dimms. But when you look at this first slide, I think all of you, when you think about the finances, and we know it's early this year, but we're thinking a lot about the budget because there's a lot happening in the fiscal cycle of the school district as we're preparing for next year. When you look at this first picture, you think about this student, you think about kids when you think about the budget. And this student's on the elementary playground having looks like a great time, but not realizing that the budget is taking place simultaneously, but the board has always done a fantastic job at keeping kids in mind as the budget happens. The next slide, when you take a look, we have 3 students here. And this budget, the process, we know it's a full year process, but it's important to think about all types of students. And on the right-hand side, you'll see one of our CTE students. On the left-hand side, you'll see one of our 4-5 students. And you can see the areas that Mrs. Kosh has worked hard at the 4-5 building, where they're play areas for the students. They go out, they learn, and those squares behind. But the student in the middle is Kevin Milza. And Kevin Milza is a senior here at Queensbury High School. And Kevin has applied to go to Stanford University next year. Kevin has reaped the benefits of Queensbury School District. He has given it all he's got. And we have to think about all students while the budget's being built. And Kevin in particular has really enjoyed the IB classes as they've been offered and really is thankful for the opportunities he's had at our high school. What is our community value? I think when you think about our community, you think about our school district, at the elementary level, the Readers and Writers Workshop. It's the finest reading and writing program any school could offer, coupled with working with Columbia University. It's truly amazing. When you think about our 4-5 building, you think about in a normal year, all the clubs and activities that happen, and no student goes without being involved in an activity in that building. And they get a chance to really experience life. In our middle school, they get to start switching classes, as well as every student leaves our middle school taking Algebra for All. And at the high school, look at all the different offerings. We have IB, we have the Early College Career Academy. We started the early CTE program where we're exposing students to our building trades program. We also have our project Lead the Way, so many college credits. In particular, my son left here with 30 college credits out of our high school. It's truly amazing the opportunities that we have in place for our kids. And when you think about, when you really close your eyes and you think about driving onto our campus in a normal year, there's hustling and bustling everywhere. There's kids, there's Little League, there's parents driving, our buildings are being used all weekend long. And we know that we have the strongest educational program that one could offer, and our community values that. What does our school community expect from us? Well, they expect a strong arts program, and we know that. And we produce that year in and year out. We think about all of the different opportunities. In the picture at the top, you can see a student in our high school science lab. It's truly amazing what we have built here in our high school, in our district, and our community has come to expect a high level of programming, but I think one could attest that they want us to keep progressing at all times. Never rest on our laurels. Our administrative team is constantly thinking about the future, and they want us to progress for all students down the road. When you look at this bottom picture, she's the best. This is little Avery Beecraft. She's in kindergarten, and she's counting on us. She's counting on us as a school district because we know Kevin is a senior, and Kevin is ready to move on. He's ready for his next steps. He still has to finish his senior year. But little Avery, she's in kindergarten, and she's counting on us to keep the same level of programming for her, if not produce a stronger program by the time she's a senior. So I plan to not let little Avery Beecraft down. She is, when you see that, there is a smile behind that face, and we were flexing at the time, our muscles. So when you look at the other pictures, these are students that love to come to school, and they love Queensbury School District. And as we build a budget, those are the thoughts that we should keep in mind.
Looking back on the history of the last 5 budgets, it gives us a good insight to where we've been with tax levy and where we've been with overall community support. As we begin to plan for the budget, we're reminded that the budget is a full year process. I had conversations today with some of our own faculty that are in a administrative program talking about budgeting. How do you budget for unexpected expenses like COVID or school being closed? It is incredibly challenging, as this board knows, to anticipate all these expenses. But what we've built into our process is stability. A stability in terms of both our expenditure planning and our revenue structure. And over the last 5 years, we've gone out to the community with an increase that we feel is respectable and responsible for the community at large. Dr. Rick Tims, when he was here, is an expert in a lot of things. He was a former business official, former superintendent, and a former district superintendent. But I think he didn't capture some of what we feel is our responsibility to the taxpayers. When we talk about the tax levy, that is the money of the community. It is not the school district's money. And we try and keep our tax levy growth stable so we can plan into the future, but at the same time being respectful that we don't want to have too much. And that becomes even more challenging at a time like now of a pandemic or an economic downturn. So when we talk about, in the next slide, about voter support, the average of the last 5 budgets has passed at around 76%. What's really important to remember, one of those budgets was a budget where we sent an absentee ballot to every single registered voter in this district. And the budget still passed with resounding success. And as we look at the needs of Queensbury School District, there is a desperate need for federal aid. We feel strongly that the federal government is making progress towards the stimulus package that will assist local municipalities. There are many medical and police and fire, as well as school districts that are dependent on this need, and we are no different. And the illustrations in this presentation are planning for the worst, but we do expect some amount of aid, and that will be part of our overall plan. And as we build towards next year, I think it's important to look at that. We've looked at around just under 3%. What we're hoping to do to bring to the taxpayers actually a decrease in the growth as we project in the next year and what we're able to do, cognizant of some of the challenges in the community at a tax rate growth less than we had growth in years past. What can be challenging for a school district is to plan deep in the future. Much is unknown, but at the same time, there are items that are set. We have a good handle, at least in terms of planning, in terms of the cost of salary, cost of benefits, and the cost of programming. But what's really important for this Board of Education to understand is some of the challenges that face us without this federal aid. So over the last 3 years, we have changed some of the structuring of the district in terms of its ratio of revenues to expenditures. It had a slight increase of fund balance. We've been able to operate at a small operating surplus, which a district should do in terms of escalating contractual costs, expenditure costs related to the building, and changing benefit costs and possible dips in state aid. But as we face this unprecedented dip in funding going forward with the federal aid component, we begin to transition into a structural deficit. So over the next several years, without that significant jump in federal aid, which we do think will come, but we still has to get here, we still have to measure it, the district will again begin to rely on fund balance. So as the community begins to digest some of this and talk about where are we going to structure our budget and structure our tax levy for next year, it isn't just 1 year. We have to think about it over a multi-year process. And when we begin to do that, it doesn't take very long without any other kind of cost escalation to start to realize that the district needs to continue building that steady plan. And I wanted to show the board a pretty simple pie chart from the district-wide financial statements that we'll be talking about at the audit committee meeting in November. The GASB, which is the Government Accounting Standards Board, does a nice job of putting the rules together for entities like ours in terms of presenting the financial information to the stakeholders. What's interesting about what GASB has schools do, as with other municipalities, presents these information in 2 different ways. Presents it on a short-term basis, where you look at essentially one budget year, one budget cycle, but then it also makes you look at it an entity-wide basis. It makes you look at long-term things like your buildings and your retirement benefits and these type of things. So what the board is seeing here on this pie chart is a representation of the district-wide expenses, not just short-term 1-year expenses, but the accrual of long-term expenses and any kind of long-term assets that the district experienced in last year. And you can see by the illustration on this pie chart, the majority of the expenses fall under what's classified by the Government Accounting Standards Board as instructional expenses. So when we start talking about interruptions in revenue that are so significant to operate at the operating surplus that was illustrated before, we can do things with debt. We can find economies of scale in how we drive our buses. But the majority of our expenses fall under this category of instruction. And that's why when we sit down in our meetings and we bring this information forward, we have to plan both the revenue and expenses to accommodate the programming that's here.
We often receive fantastic emails. You can go back 1 slide, please. When you think about this, they resonate with you. When you look at what Kim and Chuck Barton sent us as district parents, they've had 2 graduates of Queensbury High School. And throughout the district, the academics, music, and athletics are all outstanding and help to provide a well-rounded education, allowing all students to flourish. And I know our Board of Education has been prudent. They've been visionary. They've done a phenomenal job of thinking about all students. And that's prevalent when you read things like this. That's a tribute to all of our Board of Education, as well as our district leaders and our teachers, everyone that's come in contact with Barton children. Ending this presentation, we always want to show our mission statement. We've talked a lot about that word all over the years, empower all students. And I believe we do that here. And we know when we're building this budget picture throughout the year, we're excited to be able to say that we believe at this point in time, our tax rate could potentially be less than it was last year. So that's exciting for a preview for this year. But we also know that we'll continue to think about all students as we go through this budget process and inspire lifelong learners and will pursue their dreams and contribute to the global community. We know that's all important to each of us. And for the final slide, I want to make sure that these 3 words resonate. We will persevere. Our students persevere, our teachers, our bus drivers, our custodians, everyone has persevered this year. We will persevere through the budget, but we've been preparing, and we have to prepare this year because it's a tough budget cycle. We have to be prepared, and part of that discussion at the last meeting, we're thinking about being proactive at all times. We're thinking ahead. We know May seems like a long ways out, but we want to be able to go through all scenarios to look at what situation fits us best as a school district and looks at all kids. So with that said, does the board have any comments or conversation from what they've heard?
Those members that are watching virtually, do you have any questions or comments?
Just a quick comment, Dan. Excuse me. I like this presentation a lot. I think it explains it a little bit more in layman terms. I appreciate Kyle and Scott taking the time to put this together and maybe give us a little bit better snapshot of what our future holds and what direction we're headed in. But thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Anybody else?
I have a question, Brent. First, I want to say thanks for putting it together. Very well done, both of you. But in terms of the federal aid, Scott, typically, how much does it contribute as a percentage towards the total budget?
Typically, federal aid contributes a very small part or to the general fund budget. So in terms of the general fund budget, it contributes about 1% of the budget. So we count the revenue source in the general fund a little under 1%. That's mostly due to Medicaid reimbursement. So we have certain students within the district that qualify for Medicaid eligible services, and we receive Medicaid reimbursement. We do have federal grants, IDA grants, as well as title grants that we do the accounting of it are not part of the general fund budget, but they do certainly supplement instructional costs as well. Now, I think there's an important part of history here in terms of the last economic cycle we went through. There was federal aid. There is an expectation, especially when you look at schools that are in significant poverty, that there will be a federal piece to supplement for states that had a large loss of revenue. Otherwise, those instructional programs cannot continue. So there is a high poverty.
Thanks, Tim. What are you expecting, kind of? Are you still expecting the 1%? Are you hoping for the 1% and but you can do less?
Yes, we're very optimistic. If you had asked me when this would come, I probably would have had it at this point. So we hope on some level, which is a very struggling, hard place to be. If it doesn't come, I think we plan for that as well. And I think if anything, our planning has allowed us some time to address other expenditure sides of the budget. But hopefully what the board and the community takes away from this is that the expenditure side of the budget, through instructional costs, and in order to maintain that the high level of programming, it will be very challenging in that environment. So yes, we're counting on federal aid, and we have time in terms of some structuring things we can do, but really the expenses are on the instructional side. We want to communicate that to the board and the community so they understand the impact of that loss of federal aid.
Thank you very much.
Scott, I might, when you put on the slide the federal aid, are you referring to the federal aid that we typically get in a typical year, or are you looking at some supplemental funds that you're anticipating the government's plan with New York State, or New York State's come up short?
Yes, that is what we're counting on. So I think all school districts in the state are aware, and the state is very much aware, that there is a need for a federal stimulus to supply states with money so states can continue to support their education programs. States, especially the state of New York, have had their revenues very negatively impacted by COVID. So they cannot turn that money over to the schools to support those programs. And the state's very aware of that, and they're very aware of the impact of schools' finances in general. So you see schools like Stanford all really struggle to just open their doors, and they do not have the operational revenue to do that. And so yes, we're hoping for a large increase from the federal one time. And there's history with that too. Look back at the school district also. We've had economic downturns, significant like this. There has been some amount of federal aid that's being put in school. We've already seen some within the CARES Act for more assessment.
Anyone else, Kathy or Amy, Mike? Any questions or comments?
All good here.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much for putting that together, taking the time to explain it to us. Unless you have anything further, just a couple of comments I was going to add. We're in the season of the New York State School Board Convention. The pre-convention communication seminar, along with the legal seminar, was held over 3 days last week. I participated. I think Fran might have participated. I think several other members of the board did. And for those who didn't, I'm going to produce some materials. They were excellent seminars, particularly in the time of COVID. So I think for any administrators that had a chance to see it, I hope you agree. It was had some phenomenal presentations, some very talented speakers, very knowledgeable speakers that gave you more of a national perspective on what everyone seems to be dealing with and how they're coping and adjusting. So I'll produce that and give it to you folks so you can copy it, disseminate it to the rest of the board, or else like it. And the remaining sessions for the school board, if you haven't signed up, are starting this week. And I looked at the lineup of issues again. They looked excellent, and I'm looking forward to watching a number of seminars. And hope some of the staff and administration get a chance to do that as well. They did look very beneficial, very interesting. Other than that, anything else coming before us? Okay. Thank you all for attending. Again, we'll see you in a couple of weeks on November 9th. And enjoy your evening.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry. Throw that in the last minute. I was just looking at the Friday reports. Kyle, are you still looking for someone to go with you on the 12th to the school boards, or is someone going?
No, I would love to have, if you're willing, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, I should be, I'm available. So I'll just email Elizabeth. I just didn't know if anyone else had already signed up. I figured I would check tonight with you all.
Thank you. That'd be great.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Amy. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.